People will never become wealthy, not because they're lazy, not because they're incapable, not because they don't try, but because they choose the wrong path, and they don't even realize it. They wake up, they work hard, they earn money, and somehow they stay in the same place, year after year. Now here's the uncomfortable truth. There are only a few real paths to wealth. Not hundreds, not thousands, just a few. And 99% of people either don't see them or choose them incorrectly. Welcome to this audiobook. Only 3 ways to get rich, and 99% choose wrong. This is not about hype. This is not about shortcuts. And this is not financial advice. This is awareness. Because once you see the structure, you stop guessing. And when you stop guessing, you start moving with intention. In this audiobook, you will discover the 3 real paths that create wealth in the modern world, why most people misunderstand them, why each path feels simple, but is brutally difficult in execution, and how to choose the one that actually aligns with your life. You will understand why income alone will never make you rich, why ownership changes everything, why time can either trap you or multiply you, and why most people stay stuck, even when they're working harder than ever. Here's the line you need to hear early. Wealth is not about effort, it's about structure. Let that sit. Because if effort alone created wealth, everyone working hard would be rich. But that's not reality. Now pause, think about your current path. Are you building something? Are you investing? Are you earning? Or are you simply surviving? Because survival and wealth follow completely different systems. Now, here's something deeper. Most people are not choosing a path consciously. They are drifting into one, the default path, the safe path, the familiar path. But the default path rarely leads to wealth. It leads to stability. And stability is not freedom. Now this idea echoes concepts like where wealth is not created randomly, but through a few structured mechanisms that most people fail to execute properly. Now here's the roadmap. There are 3 paths. The first, you build. You create something, you own it, you scale it. The second, you buy. You acquire assets, you let them grow, you let them compound. The third, you join, you enter high-value systems. You earn aggressively, and you convert income into ownership. 3 paths, that's it. But here's the problem. Each path has a hidden cost, a difficulty that most people underestimate, and that's why they fail. Now ask yourself this: which path am I currently on? And more importantly, did I choose it, or did I fall into it? Because that question can change everything. Now here's something important. This audiobook is not here to tell you which path is best, because the best path is the one you commit to, the one you understand, the one you execute consistently. But you cannot commit to something you don't understand. And that's where we begin. Now, before we go deeper, make a decision. Not a loud one, not a dramatic one, a quiet one. Stay with this. Listen fully. Because one idea, just one, can change your direction completely. And direction is everything. Now, let's begin with the first path, the one that creates the most visible wealth, and also the most failure. Building, because building sounds exciting, but what it really requires is something most people are not prepared for. The builder's path, create or stay replaceable. There is a reason this path attracts attention, because it looks powerful. You build something, you own it, it grows, and suddenly You're no longer trading time for money. You are controlling something that produces money. That idea is seductive. But here's the truth most people never hear. Building is the most powerful path and the most brutal one. Let's slow this down. When people say start a business, they imagine freedom, flexible time, unlimited income, control. But what they don't see is the beginning: uncertainty, instability, pressure. Because building something from nothing is not glamorous, it's chaotic. Now here's the shift. Building is not about passion, it's about structure. Because passion doesn't scale. Systems do. Now this connects to ideas like where wealth is created when something new comes into existence and is owned at scale. But let's make this real. When you build, you are solving a problem, creating value, packaging it into something repeatable, and then scaling it. That's the formula. Not I have an idea, but can this grow without me? Because if it depends on you, it's not a business. It's a job. Now pause. Ask yourself, am I building something scalable or just creating another way to stay busy? Because that distinction is everything. Now let's go deeper. There are 5 stages to building something that creates wealth. First, you identify a problem, not a small one, not a personal inconvenience, a real inefficiency, something people will pay to solve. Second, you create a solution, not perfect, not complex, just functional, something that works. Third, you make it repeatable, because if you can't deliver it consistently, you can't grow. Fourth, you scale distribution, because even the best product fails without reach. And this is where most people struggle. They focus on the product, but ignore distribution. But here's the truth. A good product without distribution dies. Now the 5th stage is the most important: ownership. Because if you don't own enough of what you build, it doesn't matter how big it gets, you won't benefit. Now here's where most people fail. Not in starting, but in sustaining. Because building requires something rare: tolerance for uncertainty. You don't know if it will work. You don't know when it will pay. You don't know how long it will take. And that uncertainty breaks people. Now imagine this. You are working every day, but nothing is guaranteed. No salary, no stability, no clear path, just effort and hope. That's the early stage of building, and most people turn back. Now here's the deeper layer. Building requires identity. You have to see yourself as someone who creates, not someone who waits. Because waiting doesn't build anything. Now let's connect this to reality. Most businesses fail. That's not negative, it's factual. Because execution is difficult, not the idea, not the vision, execution. Now here's the truth. The idea is simple. The execution is everything, and execution requires consistency, focus, resilience. Now let's go deeper. Why does building create so much wealth when it works? Because of leverage. When you build something scalable, your effort is multiplied. One product sold many times. One system serving many people. One idea expanding across markets, and that multiplication creates exponential outcomes. Now compare that to income. You work, you get paid. You stop, income stops, linear. But building is nonlinear. It grows beyond your input. Now here's something powerful. Ownership amplifies scale. Because if you own a large piece and it grows, your wealth grows with it. Now here's the line to remember. Income pays you once. Ownership pays you forever. And builders focus on ownership. Now let's be honest. This path is not for everyone. Not because people aren't capable, but because they're not willing. Willing to endure uncertainty, willing to fail, willing to persist without guarantees, because that's the price. Now ask yourself this: am I willing to build something without knowing if it will work? If it will? Because that question defines this path. Now here's the shift. You don't need to start big. You need to start real. Solve a problem, create value, test it, and then improve. Because building is iterative, not perfect. Now here's something important. You don't need to build forever. You need to build until it works. Because once it works, you can scale. And scaling is where wealth appears. Now let's connect this to identity again. You are not just working, you are creating, and creation is what separates builders from earners. Now here's the truth. The builder's path is unstable in the beginning, but powerful in the end, and most people quit before the power shows up. Now let's bring this together. This is the first path. Build. Create something. Own it. Scale it. But understand the cost, because in the next chapter, we're going to explore the second path, a completely different approach. Less chaos, more stability, but still powerful. Buying. Because not everyone builds the machine, some people buy it, and that shift changes everything. The buyer's path. Own the system or work inside it forever. Not everyone builds the machine. Some people buy it, and that single shift changes everything. Now let's slow this down. If building is about creation, buying is about acquisition. You don't start from zero. You step into something that already works. A system, a company, an asset. Something that produces value, with or without you. Now here's the truth. The fastest way to wealth is not always creating. It's owning what already works. Let that sit. Because this path is quieter, less visible, but incredibly powerful. Now this idea reflects concepts like where ownership of productive assets allows wealth to grow independently of your direct effort. Now imagine this. You own a piece of something, a business, a property, a system, and every day it produces, not because you're working harder, but because it exists. That's the shift. Now ask yourself this: do I own anything that works without me? Because if the answer is no, then your income depends entirely on your effort, and effort has limits. Now let's go deeper. This path is built on one principle: ownership of productive assets. Not things that look valuable, not things that feel exciting, but things that produce. Cash flow, growth, value. Now here's something important. Not all assets are equal. Some produce, some consume, and most people confuse the two. Now pause. Think about this. A car usually consumes. A luxury item consumes. But something that generates income produces, and that difference determines your direction. Now let's go deeper. There are 4 steps in this path. First, you accumulate capital. You create surplus, not by accident, by discipline. Second, you allocate that capital into something productive, not random, intentional. Third, you reinvest. You don't extract everything, you let it grow. And fourth, you repeat again and again and again. Because repetition creates compounding. Now here's where it gets powerful. Compounding is quiet at first, almost invisible. You invest, you wait, nothing dramatic happens. And this is where most people quit, because it feels slow. But here's the truth. Compounding feels boring until it becomes unstoppable. Let that sink in, because time is the hidden multiplier. Now imagine this. You invest consistently, year after year, not perfectly, but consistently. Over time, your money starts growing on itself, not just from your input, but from its own output. And that's the moment everything accelerates. Now here's the deeper layer. This path requires patience. Because results are delayed, there's no instant reward, no immediate validation, just progress that builds quietly. Now ask yourself, am I willing to wait for something that grows over time? Because this path rewards those who stay, not those who jump. Now let's connect this to behavior. Most people interrupt compounding. They start, then stop. They invest, then withdraw. They panic, then react. And every interruption resets progress. Now here's the shift. You don't chase results. You stay consistent, because consistency unlocks compounding. Now here's something powerful. You don't need to be brilliant. You need to be disciplined. Because this path is not about timing perfectly. It's about staying in the game. Now here's the line to remember. You don't get rich from one decision. You get rich from repeated ones. And repetition is what builds wealth here. Now let's go deeper. Ownership removes dependency. Because when you own assets, your income is no longer tied only to your effort. It's tied to systems. And systems scale. Now imagine this. You wake up and value is being created, not because you're working, but because you own something that works. That's the shift. Now, here's something important. This path requires capital, and that's why many people delay it. I'll start later. I need more money first. But here's the truth. Starting small is better than waiting, because time matters more than size. Now ask yourself this. What if I started today with what I have? Because that decision creates momentum. Now let's connect this to identity. You are not just earning, you are owning. And ownership changes how you think, how you act, how you decide. Now here's the truth. If you don't own assets, you are building someone else's wealth. Let that sit, because it's real. Now let's bring this together. This is the second path. Buy. Own something productive. Let it grow. Let it compound. But understand the cost. Patience. Discipline. Consistency. Now in the next chapter, we're going to explore the third path. The one most people are already on, but rarely use correctly. Joining. Because not everyone builds and not everyone starts with capital. But there is a bridge, a way to enter the system and still create wealth, and most people completely miss how to use it. The joiner's path. Enter the system, then rise within it. Not everyone starts with capital. Not everyone builds from nothing, and not everyone wants chaos. So what do most people do? They join, they enter the system, a job, a company, an industry. And at first, this feels like the only option. Stable income, predictable structure, clear direction. But here's the truth. Joining the system can either trap you or accelerate you. And most people choose the trap. Now let's slow this down. There are two ways to exist inside a system. You can be a participant, or you can be a strategist. Participants trade time for money. They do the work. They get paid. They repeat. And over time, they stay in the same cycle. Strategists use the system. They position themselves. They increase their value. They convert income into ownership. And over time, they escape the cycle. Same environment, different outcome. Now this idea connects to insights like where entering high-value systems and converting income into ownership becomes a bridge to wealth. Now ask yourself this. Am I just working? Or am I positioning myself? Because that question changes everything. Now let's go deeper. This path has 5 phases, and most people never move past the first. Phase 1. Skill acquisition. You develop something valuable, not average, not replaceable, something that solves real problems, because value creates income. Now here's the mistake. People chase trends, short-term skills, easy paths, quick wins, but real value comes from depth, something hard to replace. Now phase 2, system selection. Where you apply your skill matters. A strong skill in a weak system limits income. A strong skill in a powerful system expands it. Now think about this. Working in a growing industry multiplies your effort. Working in a stagnant one caps it. Now phase 3, proximity. You move closer to where decisions are made, closer to capital, closer to opportunities, closer to leverage, because distance limits growth. Now here's where most people stop. They stay comfortable. They avoid positioning, and because of that, they never access opportunity. Now phase 4, conversion. This is the turning point. You take your income and turn it into ownership. You don't wait, you don't delay, you convert immediately. Because income is temporary. Ownership is lasting. Now here's the truth. High income without conversion still leads to stagnation. Because if you spend everything you earn, you reset every month. Now phase 5, detachment. This is where everything shifts. Your assets grow, your income from ownership increases, and slowly your dependence on work decreases. Not instantly, but gradually, and that's the exit. Now let's go deeper. Why do most people fail this path? Because they stop at income. They earn more, but don't convert. They upgrade lifestyle instead of building assets. And because of that, they stay trapped. Now pause. Ask yourself, if my income increased, what would I do differently? Would I build or just spend? Because that answer defines your future. Now here's something powerful. This path is the most accessible because you can start where you are. No capital required, no business needed, just awareness. Now imagine this. You focus on becoming valuable. You enter the right system, you position yourself strategically, and every increase in income, you convert. Over time, you build ownership, and ownership creates freedom. Now here's the deeper layer. This path requires discipline because the temptation is constant. More income, more spending, more comfort, and comfort slows progress. Now here's the line to remember. Earning more doesn't make you rich. Keeping and converts does. And most people ignore that second part. Now let's connect this to identity. You are not just an employee. You are a builder inside a system. You are extracting value and converting it into ownership. And that identity creates power. Now ask yourself this. Am I using my position or just staying in it? Because using it creates leverage. Staying in it creates limits. Now let's bring this together. This is the third path. Join, enter the system, earn, convert, build, and eventually detach. Now you've seen all 3 paths. Build, buy, join. But here's the truth. Most people don't fail because they don't know these paths. They fail because they misunderstand them. They mix them. They rush them. They avoid their difficulty. And in the next chapter, we're going to uncover why. Because understanding the paths is only the beginning. Execution is where everything breaks. Why 99% choose wrong and never realize it. Now you've seen the 3 paths. Build, buy, join. Simple, clear, structured. So why do most people still fail? Why do they work for years and never break through? Why do they stay stuck even when they're trying? Because they don't fail from lack of effort. They fail from misunderstanding. Now let's slow this down. The problem is not the paths. The problem is how people approach them. Because each path has a hidden difficulty, and most people avoid it without even realizing it. Now here's the truth. People don't choose the wrong path. They avoid the hard part of the right one. Let that sit. Because this is where everything becomes clear. Now let's break it down. The builder's path fails because people underestimate execution. They think ideas matter. They think passion is enough. But building requires systems, consistency, resilience, and most people quit when it gets uncertain. Now ask yourself, have I ever started something and stopped because it got difficult? That's where builders are separated. Now the buyer's path fails because people lack patience. They want fast results. They want immediate growth. But compounding takes time. And most people interrupt it. They start investing, then stop. They panic, then react. And every interruption resets progress. Now pause. Have you ever stopped something because it felt too slow? That's where investors fail. Now the joiner's path fails because people stop at income. They earn more, but they don't convert. They upgrade lifestyle. They increase spending, and they stay stuck at a higher level. Now ask yourself, if I earned more tomorrow, would I build or just spend? Because that answer defines your path. Now here's the deeper layer. Most people don't commit. They jump between paths. They try building, then stop. They try investing, then quit. They try earning more, then lose discipline. And because of that, they never go deep enough to see results. Now here's the shift. You don't need all three paths. You need one executed fully, because depth creates outcomes, not variety. Now here's something important. Each path has a cost. The builder's cost is uncertainty. The buyer's cost is patience. The joiner's cost is discipline. And most people avoid all three. Now think about this. If you avoid uncertainty, you won't build. If you avoid patience, you won't invest. If you avoid discipline, you won't convert income. And if you avoid all three, you stay where you are. Now here's the truth. Wealth is built by accepting the cost, not avoiding it. And that cost is what filters people out. Now let's go deeper. People also fail because they follow the wrong signals. They chase hype. They follow trends. They look for shortcuts. But wealth is not built on trends. It's built on structure. Now imagine this. Instead of chasing everything, you choose one path. You understand it deeply. You accept its cost, and you stay. Through discomfort, through doubt, through slow progress. Over time, something changes. You break through, not suddenly, but gradually. And that's when everything shifts. Now, here's something powerful. Most people are closer than they think. They just stop too early. They quit before the result appears. And that's why they believe it doesn't work. Now ask yourself this. Where have I stopped too soon? Because that answer reveals your pattern. Now here's the psychological truth. Your brain seeks comfort. It avoids difficulty. It looks for easier paths. But easier paths don't lead to wealth. They lead to average. Now here's the line to remember. If it feels easy, it's probably not building anything. Because real growth requires resistance. Now let's connect this to identity. You are not someone who avoids difficulty. You are someone who moves through it because that identity creates progress. Now here's the shift. Stop looking for the perfect path. Start committing to the real one because perfection doesn't exist. Execution does. Now let's bring this together. You now understand the three paths, the hidden costs, the real reason people fail. And this is where everything changes, because in the next chapter, we're going to talk about something deeper, choice. Because knowing the paths means nothing if you don't choose one. And most people stay stuck in indecision for years. The illusion you were sold. From a young age, you were taught something simple. Go to school, get a good job, work hard, save money. It sounds logical, safe, responsible. But here's the uncomfortable question. If that path truly worked, why are so many people still struggling? Why do people who follow all the rules still feel stuck? Still feel behind? Still feel like they are running, but never arriving? Because that path was never designed to make you rich. It was designed to make you stable, predictable, controllable. And there's nothing wrong with stability. But don't confuse stability with freedom. The first wake-up call. Wealth is not created by effort alone. It is created by leverage. And leverage is what separates the three paths. Some paths give you leverage. Some paths limit it. And if you choose wrong, you can spend 40 years climbing a ladder. That was leaning against the wrong wall. A sentence you must remember. The path you choose matters more than the effort you give. Why most people choose wrong? Because they follow what they see, and what they see is everyone around them doing the same thing, working, earning, spending, repeating. It feels normal, but normal is not the same as effective. The emotional trap. There's comfort in the crowd. When everyone around you is doing the same thing, it feels safe, even if it's wrong, because at least you're not alone. But here's the truth. The majority is not a sign of correctness. It's a sign of comfort. And comfort rarely leads to wealth. The three doors. Imagine your life as three doors. Door 1, you build something. Door 2, you own something. Door 3, you position yourself inside something. Every wealthy person you've ever heard of chose one of these, or combined them. But they all started with a decision, and that decision defined everything that followed. The problem. Most people don't choose consciously. They drift. They follow the default, and the default is rarely designed for success. The shift begins now. From this moment forward, you are no longer drifting. You are choosing. You are observing. You are thinking, and that alone separates you from most people. A quiet call to action. If something already feels different, if one idea already hit deeper than expected, take a moment and make a simple internal promise. I will not go through life unconsciously, because awareness is the first step to everything. What comes next? Now that you understand there are only three paths, we begin with the first, the most powerful, the most difficult, the most misunderstood, the path where wealth is not found, but created. In the next chapter, you will discover the first way to get rich, why building something changes everything, and why most people fail before they even begin. Because this path is simple to understand, but brutally hard to execute, and that's exactly why it works. Part 2. Build the machine. Chapter 2. The hardest path. With the highest reward, there is a reason most people never choose this path, not because it's hidden, not because it's impossible, but because it demands something rare, Responsibility. This is the first way to get rich. You don't work for money. You build something that works for you. The brutal truth. This path is simple to explain. You create a system. You own it. You scale it. That's it. But simple does not mean easy, because building something forces you to confront reality. No guarantees, no safety net, no fixed outcome, just uncertainty. Every single day. A line that defines this path. You don't earn wealth here. You create it. Why this path is different. Most people trade time for money, but builders break that relationship. They create something that produces value even when they are not present. A business, a platform, a system, and once that system works, it multiplies. The hidden multiplier effort is limited. You can only work so many hours, think so many thoughts, push so much energy, but a system has no such limit. It can scale, expand, grow beyond you, and that's where wealth begins. The first misconception. People think building is about passion. It's about doing what you love. No, that's incomplete. Building is about solving problems at scale, because wealth follows value, and value is created when you solve something that matters. The real question, not what do I enjoy, but what problem can I solve repeatedly? For many people, at a high level, that's where the game begins. The 5 invisible steps. Every successful builder follows a pattern, even if they don't realize it. First, they identify something broken, something inefficient, something missing. Second, they create a solution, not perfect, but functional. Third, they make it repeatable, a system, not a one-time effort. Fourth, they scale it, more people, more reach, more distribution. And fifth, they keep ownership. And this is where most people fail. The ownership mistake people build, but they give away control too early, too easily, too cheaply. And in the end, they don't own what they created. A sentence you must remember: if you don't own it, you don't benefit from its growth, the emotional reality. This path will test you: doubt, failure, uncertainty, rejection. You will question yourself more than once, because there is no clear roadmap, only decisions. The hidden cost. You don't just risk money, you risk time, energy, confidence, and that's why most people avoid this path, because it's easier to follow than to create. But here's the trade-off safety limits upside. Risk expands it, and builders accept that. They understand something most people don't. Volatility is the price of ownership, the breakthrough moment. At some point, if you persist, something shifts. Your system starts working, not perfectly, not consistently at first, but enough to prove it's possible. And from that moment, everything changes. The acceleration phase. You refine, you improve, you scale, and suddenly, growth is no longer linear. It starts to multiply, because systems don't grow like effort. They grow like networks. The compounding effect: more users, more customers, more reach. Each layer builds on the last, and over time, what started small becomes unstoppable. Why this path creates massive wealth? Because ownership scales. If you own a piece of something growing, your wealth grows with it. Not because you worked harder, but because you positioned yourself correctly. The harsh reality. Most people will try this and quit, not because they can't succeed, but because they can't endure the early phase, the phase where nothing works, nothing makes sense, nothing pays off. But that phase is necessary, because it filters. It separates those who want comfort from those who want control. The identity you must build. are no longer someone who waits. You are someone who creates, who solves, who builds, who persists. And that identity is required for this path. A sentence that defines this chapter. You don't find leverage, you build it. The quiet advantage. If you succeed here, everything changes, not just financially, but mentally, because you realize you can create outcomes, and that realization is power. What comes next? Now you understand the first path, building, creating, owning. But there is another way, a quieter way, a slower way, a way that doesn't require building from zero, because not everyone creates the machine. Some people buy it. In the next chapter, we explore the second way to get rich. How owning assets can quietly build massive wealth over time, and why patience becomes your greatest advantage. Please like and subscribe if you want a better future for your children, your family, and yourself. It's very difficult to achieve success today, but I'm sure you'll succeed. All you have to do is learn and discover new things. Part 3. Buy the Machine. Chapter 3. The Quiet Path That Builds Empires. Not everyone builds, and that's okay, because there is a second path to wealth, a path that doesn't require starting from zero, a path that doesn't demand constant chaos, a path that most people overlook because it feels too simple. But don't mistake simplicity for weakness. This is the second way to get rich. You don't create the machine. You own pieces of machines that already work. The shift in perspective. Instead of asking, "What can I build?" you ask, "What can I own?" Because ownership is where wealth lives. A line that defines this path. You don't need to invent the engine. You just need to own part of it. The hidden truth right now. There are thousands of systems operating, businesses, markets, properties, platforms, all generating value, all producing income, all growing, and most people interact with them as consumers. But the wealthy, they interact as owners. The difference is everything. Consumers spend, owners earn, consumers pay, owners receive, consumers follow the system, owners benefit from it. And that single shift changes everything. The power of assets. An asset is simple. It produces value with or without your direct effort. It could be a company, a property, a share in a system. But the core idea is always the same. It works even when you don't. The magic word compounding. It sounds boring, slow, almost invisible, but it is one of the most powerful forces in existence. The first year feels small. You invest. You earn a little. It doesn't feel life-changing. The second year, a bit more. Still not impressive, but something is happening. The curve begins to bend. Because now, your growth is building on growth, not just your effort, but your previous results. And over time, that curve bends upward, slowly at first, then suddenly. A sentence you must remember. Small gains repeated consistently become unstoppable force over time. Why most people fail? Here, because they quit too early. They expect fast results, instant growth, quick wins, and when they don't see it, they stop. The emotional trap, impatience. It kills more wealth than lack of knowledge ever will, because this path rewards consistency, not excitement, not intensity. Consistency. The simple formula: earn, save, invest, repeat. It's not complicated, but it requires discipline, and discipline is rare. The real advantage. You don't need to be a genius. You don't need perfect timing. You need to stay in the game long enough for compounding to work. The long-term vision, 5 years, you'll see progress. 10 years, you'll see momentum. 20 years, you'll see transformation. 30 years, you'll see freedom. The hidden layer. Ownership separates effort from income. You are no longer tied to your time. Your assets produce, your systems grow, your position strengthens, and that creates leverage. The silent power. This path is quiet, no spotlight, no headlines, no sudden explosions, just steady growth. And that's why most people ignore it, because it doesn't feel exciting, but it works. The identity shift. You stop thinking like a spender and start thinking like an owner. Every decision changes. Is this making me richer or just busier? The compounding mindset. You stop chasing fast wins and start building slow certainty because you understand something deeper. Time is not your enemy. It's your greatest ally. A sentence that defines this chapter. Wealth grows quietly until one day it's impossible to ignore. The reality check. This path is slower than building, but it's more stable, less chaos, less volatility, but still powerful. The trade-off. You sacrifice speed for consistency. You sacrifice excitement for certainty. And for many people, that trade is worth it. What comes next? Now you understand two paths. Build the machine, buy the machine. But there is a third, the path most people actually start on. The bridge between effort and ownership. Because not everyone starts with capital. Not everyone wants to build from zero. So they enter a system and use it to rise. In the next chapter, we explore the third way to get rich, how to position yourself inside powerful systems, and convert income into real wealth, because this path is where most journeys begin. Part 4. Enter the system. Chapter 4. The path most people start on, but few finish. This is where most people begin, not with ownership, not with control, but with entry. They enter a system, a company, an industry, a structure that already exists, and they trade their time for income. The truth you already know. You've seen this path. Maybe you're living it right now. You work, you get paid, you repeat, and on the surface, it works. But here's the problem. Income alone will never make you rich. Let that settle. Because this is where 99% of people get stuck. They think, if I just earn more, everything will change. But it doesn't. The income illusion. You earn more, you spend more, you upgrade your lifestyle, and suddenly you're still in the same place, just with bigger numbers. A line that defines this trap. If your income grows, but your ownership doesn't, you're just running faster in the same place, the real purpose of this path. This path is not the destination. It's the bridge, a way to build skills, earn capital, gain access. But most people never cross the bridge. They build a life on it, and that's where they stay. The 3 layers inside the system. Not all jobs are equal. Not all positions are the same. There are levels. At the bottom, you trade time for money. In the middle, you influence outcomes. At the top, you participate in value creation. And that difference changes everything. The shift you must make. Stop asking, how do I get paid more? Start asking, how do I get closer to value? Because value is where leverage lives. The hidden pattern. Look at high earners. They are not just working harder. They are positioned closer to decisions, money flow, growth, and because of that, they earn more. The skill layer. To move up, you need something rare, a skill that creates value at scale, not something trendy, not something easy, something that generates revenue, reduces cost, solves real problems, because scarcity creates demand, and demand creates income. The system matters. Your skill is important, but the system you're in matters just as much. A strong skill in a weak system caps your growth. A strong skill in a powerful system multiplies it. The strategic question, not what should I do, but where does value multiply the fastest? Because that's where you want to be. The turning point. At some stage, you begin earning more, and this is where most people fail, because instead of converting that income, they consume it. Lifestyle upgrades, comfort, status, and just like that, the opportunity disappears. The conversion rule. This is the most important rule of this path. Income must be converted into ownership, not later, not someday, immediately. The formula: earn to convert to own not. Earn to spend to repeat, because only one of those leads to wealth. The emotional challenge. It's hard because everyone around you is upgrading, spending, enjoying, and you are choosing discipline, choosing delay, choosing long-term thinking. But that's the difference. Most people optimize for today. You optimize for tomorrow, and over time, that difference becomes massive. The exit point. Eventually, if you do this correctly, something changes. Your assets grow, your ownership expands, your dependence on income decreases, and one day, you realize something powerful. You don't need to work anymore. You choose to. A sentence that defines this chapter. The goal is not to work forever. It's to reach a point where work becomes optional. The final shift. You entered the system to escape it, not physically, but financially, because once your assets produce enough, you are free. Why most people fail? Because they never convert. They earn, they spend, they repeat, and the cycle continues forever. But you see it now. You understand the bridge, you know what it's for, and you know how to cross it. What comes next? Now you understand all three paths. Build the machine, buy the machine, enter the system, then convert. But knowing them is not enough, because each path has a hidden cost, a difficulty most people underestimate. And in the next chapter, we break down the truth behind each path, why they are all hard, and why most people fail, even when they choose correctly. Because success is not about choosing a path, it's about surviving it. Part 5. Why all three paths are hard. Chapter 5. The truth nobody tells you about getting rich. At this point, you might be thinking, okay, I get it. 3 paths, 3 options, 3 ways to win. So why doesn't everyone just pick one and succeed? Because here's the truth, the part nobody likes to talk about. Every path to wealth is hard. Not complicated, not impossible, but hard. The lie of easy success. You've seen it online. Fast money, quick success, simple tricks. It looks effortless, but it's not real. Because real wealth demands something deeper: consistency, discipline, endurance. A line that defines this chapter. There is no easy path to wealth, only paths worth the difficulty. The first path, building, looks exciting. You create something, you grow it, you scale it, but here's what you don't see. Uncertainty every day, no guaranteed income, constant pressure, and most importantly, failure, again and again, before anything works. The emotional cost building will test you, not just your skills, but your identity. Because when something fails, it feels personal, and most people can't handle that. Why people quit not? Because they lack ability. but because they can't handle uncertainty. They want control, stability, predictability, and this path offers none of that in the beginning. The second path, buying, looks calm, stable, predictable. But here's the hidden difficulty. It requires patience, and patience is rare. The slow start problem. At the beginning, nothing feels significant. Small returns, small progress, small movement, and most people think this isn't working, so they stop right before it starts compounding. The discipline cost. This path requires consistency year after year, without excitement, without validation, and that's where people fail, because they want fast results. The third path, entering the system, feels safe. You earn, you grow, you move up. But here's the trap. Comfort. The comfort trap. You start earning more, and life gets easier. You upgrade, you relax, you settle, and without realizing it, you stop progressing. The lifestyle illusion. Your income increases, but your freedom doesn't, because your expenses grow with it, and suddenly, you're stuck at a higher level. The conversion failure. Most people never convert income into ownership, and without ownership, there is no escape. The common pattern. All three paths fail for the same reason. People stop too early. They quit building before it works. They quit investing before it compounds. They quit converting before it matters. The real enemy, not the system, not the market, but emotion, fear, impatience, comfort. A sentence you must remember. The path doesn't fail you. You fail the path by leaving too soon. The reality check. There is no perfect path, only the one you can commit to, because success is not about choosing the best option, it's about staying long enough for the option to work. The identity factor. Each path requires a different version of you. The builder must be resilient. The investor must be patient. The operator must be disciplined. And if your identity doesn't match the path, you will struggle the inner alignment. This is where most people go wrong. They choose a path that doesn't fit who they are, and instead of adapting, they quit. The better question, not which path is best, but which path can I endure long enough to succeed? Because endurance is the real advantage. The quiet truth, the people who win, are not always the smartest, not always the most talented, but the ones who stay when others leave. The long-term game, wealth is not built in weeks or months, it's built in years, through repetition, consistency, persistence, a sentence that defines. This chapter, you don't need a perfect strategy, you need the discipline to stay. The shift happens. Here now you understand something deeper. It's not about the path alone. It's about who you become. While walking it, what comes next? Now that you see the difficulty, we go deeper, because each path has something else, a hidden advantage, a unique strength. That makes it powerful. And in the next chapter, we break them down one by one, so you can see clearly what each path gives you and what it demands from you. Because once you understand that, your decision becomes obvious. Hang on a sec. Hey there, dear viewers. Write in the comments what you'd like us to talk about in the next video. We promise to read all the comments and pick the best and most relevant topics. Thanks. Part 6, The Hidden Advantage of Each Path. Chapter 6, What Each Road Really Gives You. Now you understand something most people never do. There are only 3 paths. All of them are hard. All of them require sacrifice. But here's the part that changes everything. Each path gives you something unique. And if you understand that, you stop guessing You start choosing the first path, building the advantage of creation. When you build, you create something from nothing, and that gives you the most powerful advantage of all: unlimited upside. There is no ceiling, no fixed limit, no predefined outcome. If your system works, it can scale beyond imagination. The builder's power. You are not following the market. You are shaping it. You are not waiting for opportunity. You are creating it. And that gives you leverage at the highest level. A line that defines this path. Builders don't chase opportunity, they create it. The hidden benefit. Even if you fail, you gain something rare: experience, understanding, clarity. Because once you build, you see the world differently. You understand systems. You understand value. You understand scale. And that knowledge never leaves you. The trade-off, but you pay for it with uncertainty, stress, risk, because unlimited upside comes with unlimited responsibility. The second path, buying the advantage of compounding. When you invest, you don't create the system, you participate in it. And your advantage is simple: time works for you, not against you. The investor's power. You don't need to be everywhere. You don't need to do everything. You let systems grow, and you grow with them, quietly, consistently. A sentence that defines this path. Investors don't rush, they position and wait. The hidden benefit. You reduce chaos, less stress, less volatility, less emotional swings, because your growth is structured, not dependent on daily decisions, the trade-off. But you pay with time. You wait, you stay consistent, you trust the process, because compounding is slow before it's powerful. The third path, entering the system. The advantage of acceleration when you enter a system. You gain something unique: speed. You don't start from zero. You step into something already moving, and if you position yourself correctly, you rise faster. The operator's power. You leverage existing systems, existing infrastructure, existing growth, and that gives you momentum. A line that defines this path. You don't need to build the rocket. You need to get on the right one. The hidden benefit: you gain access to knowledge, to networks, to opportunities, things you could never access alone. The trade-off, but you must convert, because without conversion, you remain dependent, and dependency limits freedom. The big realization: now step back. Look at all three paths. Each one offers something different. Building, unlimited, upside buying, compounding stability, entering, accelerated growth. And each one demands something different. Building to resilience, buying to patience, entering to discipline, the decision framework. This is where clarity appears. You don't choose randomly, you choose based on alignment. Who you are, what you can handle, what you're willing to endure. The better question, not which path is the fastest, but which path fits the person I am becoming, because alignment creates consistency, and consistency creates results. The hidden truth. Most people fail because they try to force themselves into the wrong path. They try to build without resilience. They try to invest without patience. They try to operate without discipline, and it doesn't work. The identity match. Success is not just about strategy, it's about identity, because your path must match your mindset. A sentence that defines this chapter. The right path is not the easiest. It's the one you can stay on. The quiet shift. You stop comparing, you stop chasing, you stop guessing, and you start aligning with your strengths, your tolerance, your vision, the long-term advantage. When alignment is correct, everything becomes easier, not because the path is easy, but because you are built for it. The next layer. Now you understand the paths, the advantages, the trade-offs, but there is one more layer, something that determines how far you go. No matter which path you choose, your mindset. Because two people can choose the same path and end up in completely different places. And in the next chapter, we break down the mindset that separates winners from everyone else. Because the path matters, but the mind walking it matters even more. Part 7, The Mind That Builds Wealth. Chapter 7, Why Mindset Decides Everything. Two people can choose the same path and end up in completely different lives. Same opportunity, same starting point, same environment, but one rises and the other stays stuck. Why? It's not luck, it's not talent, it's mindset. The hidden divider. Most people think wealth is external, money, assets, opportunities. But wealth begins internally, with how you think. Because your thinking shapes your decisions, and your decisions shape your life. A line that defines. This chapter, your results are not random. They are reflections of your thinking. The first mindset shift, from passive to active. Most people wait. They wait for opportunities, wait for better timing, wait for things to change, but winners move. They don't wait for clarity. They create it through action. The passive trap. I'll start when I'm ready. That sentence has destroyed more potential than failure ever could, because readiness never comes before action. It comes after. The second mindset shift, from consumption to creation. Most people consume content, information, entertainment, but they rarely create. And here's the truth. Consumption makes you comfortable. Creation makes you powerful. Because when you create, you think differently. You engage, you solve, you build, and that builds capability. The third mindset shift, from short-term to long-term. Most people want results now. Fast progress, instant rewards, immediate change. But wealth doesn't work that way. It rewards time, consistency, patience. The time perspective. The wealthy think in years, most people think in days, and that difference changes everything. A sentence, you must remember what feels slow today, becomes unstoppable tomorrow. The fourth mindset shift, from fear to understanding. Fear is natural. Fear of failure, fear of loss, fear of uncertainty. But here's what separates winners. They don't eliminate fear. They understand it. They see it as a signal, not a stop sign. The reframe, instead of asking, what if I fail? They ask, what happens if I don't try? And that question changes action. The fifth mindset shift, from ego to learning ego, protects you. It keeps you comfortable, keeps you right, keeps you safe, but it also keeps you stuck. Because growth requires something else, humility, the ability to learn, to adapt, to change. The learning advantage. Every failure becomes feedback. Every mistake becomes data, and over time, that learning compounds. The sixth mindset shift, from isolation to awareness. Most people think in isolation, my job, my money, my situation, but winners think in systems. How does this connect? What drives this? What influences this? Because systems reveal opportunities. The pattern recognition. You start seeing connections between effort and outcome, between position and leverage, between decisions and results. And that awareness becomes your edge. The seventh mindset shift, from scarcity to abundance. Scarcity says, there's not enough. Abundance says, there's more than I can see. And that belief changes behavior. Scarcity makes you hold. Abundance makes you build. A sentence that defines this chapter. Your mindset doesn't just influence your path, it determines how far you go on it. The identity. Behind the mindset, these shifts are not temporary. They are not something you turn on and off. They become who you are, how you think, how you decide, how you act. The quiet transformation. You don't notice it immediately, but over time, you respond differently, you choose differently, you move differently, and those differences create new outcomes. The gap widens. At first, it's small, barely noticeable, but over time, it grows. Because your thinking compounds, just like money does. The new standard, you no longer accept default thinking. You question, you analyze, you choose intentionally, and that standard raises your entire life. The internal control. You stop blaming, stop reacting, stop drifting, and start controlling your actions, your direction, your future, what comes next. Now, you understand the paths, the difficulty, the advantages, and the mindset required. But now we go deeper, because there is something even more important. Focus. Because in a world full of distractions, even the right mindset can fail without control. And in the next chapter, we break down the power of focus, why most people lose it, and how mastering it changes everything. Because attention is the most valuable currency you have. Part 8, the currency of attention. Chapter 8, why focus is your ultimate advantage. There is something more valuable than money, more powerful than talent, more important than opportunity. And most people waste it every single day. Attention. The invisible drain. Look around. Notifications, messages, endless scrolling, constant noise. Your attention is being pulled in every direction, and without realizing it, you lose control. A line that defines this chapter: where your attention goes, your life follows. The modern trap. You wake up, you check your phone, you react, and before the day even begins, you've already lost focus because your mind is no longer yours. It belongs to whatever captured it first. The cost of distraction. Distraction feels harmless, but it compounds. Minutes turn into hours. Hours turn into days. Days turn into years. And suddenly, you've spent your life reacting instead of building. The wealth connection. Every path we discussed requires focus. Building requires deep work. Investing requires discipline. Positioning requires awareness. And without focus, none of them work. The focus gap. This is where most people lose, not because they lack ability, but because they can't sustain attention. They start, they stop, they switch, they drift, and progress disappears. The power of deep focus. When you focus, truly focus, something changes. Your thinking sharpens, your output improves, your speed increases because your energy is no longer scattered. It's directed. The hidden multiplier, 1 hour of deep focus, is worth more than 10 hours of distraction, because clarity creates efficiency, and efficiency creates results. The discipline of attention focus is not natural anymore. It must be trained, protected, guarded, because the world is designed to take it from you. The first rule: control your environment, remove distractions, silence noise, create space, because focus needs room to exist. The second rule: set clear intentions. Don't start your day randomly. Decide what matters, what moves you forward, and give it your full attention. The third rule: stay with the task. Don't switch, don't check, don't escape, because every time you break focus, you lose momentum. The fourth rule, train consistency. Focus is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. The less you use it, the weaker it gets. A sentence. You must remember, focus is not something you have. It's something you practice. The emotional resistance. At first, it feels hard. Your mind wants stimulation, change, escape. But that's the habit, and breaking it creates power. The shift happens slowly. You start with minutes, then longer, then deeper, until focus becomes natural again. The competitive advantage. Most people can't do this. They are addicted to distraction, and that's why focus becomes your edge. The silent separation. While others scroll, you build. While others react, you create. While others drift, you move forward, and over time, that difference becomes massive. The connection to wealth focus allows you to build better systems, make smarter decisions, stay consistent longer, and consistency is what creates wealth. The new identity. You are no longer reactive, you are intentional. You decide where your attention goes, and that decision shapes your future. A line that defines this shift. Control your attention, and you control your life. The bigger picture. This is not just about work. It's about everything. Your thoughts, your emotions, your habits, because attention influences all of it. The final realization. If you can master focus, you can master anything. Because everything requires attention, and attention is within your control. What comes next? Now you understand something powerful, the paths, the mindset, the focus. But now we go deeper into something even more critical, discipline. Because focus starts the process, but discipline sustains it. And in the next chapter, we break down the force that turns effort into results. Because without discipline, nothing lasts. If you enjoy these audiobooks and want to support the channel, consider joining our private members community. Members get early access to new audiobooks and exclusive wealth lessons. Part 9. The discipline that builds everything. Chapter 9. Why motivation fails in discipline. Wins motivation feels powerful. It gives you energy, clarity, momentum. It makes you feel like everything is possible. But here's the truth most people avoid. Motivation is temporary. It comes and it goes. And if your success depends on it, your success will disappear with it. The real problem. Most people wait to feel ready. They wait to feel inspired. They wait to feel motivated. And when they don't, they stop. A line that defines this chapter. If you only act when you feel like it, you will never go far. The missing piece. What you need is not more motivation. You need discipline. Because discipline does not depend on feelings. It depends on decisions. The power of discipline. Discipline is simple. You do what needs to be done. Whether you feel like it or not, that's it. No emotion, no negotiation, no excuses. The daily battle. Every day, there is a choice. Do what's easy, or do what matters, and that choice repeats endlessly. The comfortable path, skip the work. Delay the task. Choose convenience. It feels good in the moment, but it costs you later. The disciplined path, show up. Do the work. Stay consistent. It feels hard in the moment, but it pays you later. The trade-off, short-term comfort or long-term growth. You cannot have both. A sentence you must remember. Discipline is choosing what you want most over what you want now. The identity shift. You stop asking, do I feel like it? And start saying, this is who I am. Because discipline is not just action, it's identity. The habit loop, you act, you repeat, you reinforce, and over time, discipline becomes automatic. The compound effect one disciplined action feels small, but repeated daily, it becomes powerful because consistency creates momentum and momentum creates results. Why most people fail? They rely on emotion, and emotion is unstable. One day they're motivated, the next they're not, and progress disappears. The hidden advantage discipline removes that problem because it doesn't change. It stays consistent no matter how you feel. The builder's discipline. You show up even when nothing works, even when there's no reward, because you trust the process. The investor's discipline. You stay consistent even when growth feels slow, even when results aren't visible, because you trust time. The operator's discipline. You convert income even when it's tempting to spend, because you trust future. The pattern is clear. Every path requires discipline. Without it, nothing holds. The emotional reality. You will feel resistance. You will feel doubt. You will feel fatigue. That's normal. But discipline moves anyway. The internal standard. You don't lower your effort based on your mood. You maintain your standard because your standard defines your life. A sentence that defines this shift. Your future is built on what you do consistently, not what you do occasionally. The quiet strength discipline is not loud. It doesn't show off. It doesn't seek attention. It works silently, day after day, until one day the results become visible. The separation point. This is where people split. Some choose comfort, some choose discipline. And over time, that choice creates two completely different lives. The long-term impact years later, it looks like luck. Like some people just got ahead. But it wasn't luck. It was discipline. Repeated daily, the new identity. You are no longer driven by emotion. You are driven by standards, and those standards guide everything. The final realization. You don't need to feel motivated. You need to stay consistent, because consistency outperforms everything. What comes next? Now, you understand something critical. Focus directs your energy. Discipline sustains your progress. But there is another layer, one that determines whether you rise or fall. Your environment. Because even the strongest discipline can be broken by the wrong surroundings. And in the next chapter, we explore the influence of environment. Why who you're around shapes who you become, and how to position yourself for growth. Because success is not just internal, it's also external. Part 10. The environment that shapes you. Chapter 10. Why who you're around determines who you become. There is a force in your life, quiet, invisible, constant, and whether you realize it or not, it is shaping you every single day. Your environment. The hidden influence. You don't notice it at first because it feels normal, familiar, comfortable, but over time, it defines your thinking, your standards, your behavior, a line that defines this chapter. You don't rise to your goals. You fall to your environment. The people around you look closely. The conversations you hear, the habits you see, the beliefs you absorb. They become part of you, not intentionally, not consciously, but consistently. The subtle conditioning. If you're surrounded by people who avoid risk, you become cautious. If you're surrounded by people who complain, you become negative. If you're surrounded by people who settle, you lower your standards. The mirror effect. You reflect your environment, not perfectly, but gradually, and over time, that reflection becomes your identity. The comfort zone trap. The wrong environment feels safe because it requires nothing from you, no growth, no pressure, no change. But that comfort comes at a cost, your potential, the growth environment. Now, imagine something different. You are surrounded by people who think bigger, act faster, demand more. Suddenly, your standards shift because you adapt. The pressure of proximity. When you're around people who are growing, you feel it. You can't stay the same because their movement pushes you forward. A sentence: you must remember your environment doesn't just influence you, it pulls you in a direction. The energy around you. It's not just people, it's everything. What you watch, what you listen to, what you consume, all of it shapes your thinking. The information diet. If you consume distraction, you become distracted. If you consume growth, you become focused because your mind absorbs what it's fed. The silent impact. You might think, this doesn't affect me, but it does. Slowly, subtly, consistently. The environment upgrade. At some point, you must make a decision. Do I stay where I am comfortable or move where I can grow? The hard truth: growth often requires separation from habits, from routines, from people. And that's not easy because familiarity feels like security. But here's the reality. Familiar does not mean right. And if your environment is limiting you, staying is a decision. The new standard. You begin to choose differently who you spend time with, what you listen to, what you focus on, because you understand it all matters. The internal strength. At first, you may feel alone, different, out of place. That's normal because you are changing. The long-term result over time. Your environment aligns with your growth. New people, new conversations, new opportunities, and suddenly you're moving faster. The hidden advantage. Most people never do this. They stay where they started, and their life reflects it. But you make the shift, and that shift changes everything. A sentence that defines this chapter: change your environment, and your results will follow. The bigger picture environment supports discipline. It strengthens focus. It reinforces mindset because everything is connected. The final realization. You are not separate from your surroundings. You are shaped by them. And once you understand that, you take control. What comes next? Now you understand something powerful. The paths, the mindset, the focus, the discipline, the environment. But now we go deeper, because there is something even more dangerous than distraction. Self-deception, the lies you tell yourself. And in the next chapter, we break down the truth about self-sabotage, why people hold themselves back, even when they know better. Because the biggest obstacle is often internal. Part 11, the lies that keep you stuck. Chapter 11, how you sabotage yourself without realizing it. There is something more dangerous than failure, more dangerous than lack of money, more dangerous than bad opportunities, and it lives inside you, not as a weakness, not as a flaw, but as a story you repeat without even realizing it. The invisible enemy. It doesn't look like fear. It doesn't feel like resistance. It sounds reasonable, logical, even protective. I'll start later. I'm not ready yet. This won't work for me. I need more time. And just like that, you stop. A line that defines. This chapter, the biggest obstacle is not outside you. It's the story you believe inside, the comfort of self-deception. Your mind is designed to protect you, to keep you safe, to avoid pain, to reduce risk. But sometimes that protection becomes a prison because safety prevents growth. The most common lie: I'll do it when I'm ready. But readiness is a myth. You don't become ready by waiting. You become ready by acting. The second lie. I don't have enough time. But look closer. Time is not the issue. Priority is, because you always make time for what matters most. The third lie. I'm not like them. You compare yourself. You doubt yourself. You limit yourself. But here's the truth. They were not ready either. They just started. The fourth lie. What if I fail? This one feels real, powerful, paralyzing. But ask yourself, what if you don't try? Because that failure is guaranteed. The fifth lie. I'll start when things calm down. But life never calms down. There will always be something. And if you wait for perfect conditions, you will wait forever. The pattern you must see. Every lie has one purpose, to keep you where you are. Because staying the same feels safe, even if it's limiting the emotional reality. These thoughts feel true because they are familiar, but familiarity does not equal truth. The awareness shift. The moment you recognize these patterns, they lose power because now you can see them, and once you see them, you can challenge them. The internal dialogue, instead of saying, I can't do this, you ask, what's the smallest step I can take? Instead of, I'm not ready, you say, I'll figure it out as I go. A sentence. You must remember, you don't need to remove doubt. You need to act despite it. The control returns. You stop being controlled by thoughts and start controlling them, because thoughts are not commands. They are suggestions. The identity shift. You become someone who moves despite fear, acts despite doubt, chooses despite uncertainty. And that identity breaks the cycle, the hidden advantage. Most people never do this. They believe every thought. And because of that, they stay stuck. The separation point. This is where you rise. Not because you are fearless, but because you are aware. The new standard. You don't accept excuses, even from yourself. You question them, challenge them, replace them. The internal power. You realize something powerful. You are not your thoughts. You are the one observing them, and that gives you control. A sentence that defines this shift. The moment you stop believing every thought, you start taking control of your life. The long-term effect. Over time, this changes everything because you no longer sabotage yourself. You support yourself with action, with discipline, with awareness. The final realization. You were never lacking ability. You were just listening to the wrong voice. And now, you've turned it off. What comes next? Now you understand something critical. The paths, the mindset, the focus, the discipline, the environment, the self-deception. But now we move into something even deeper. Time. Because no matter what path you choose, time will either work for you or against you. And in the next chapter, we break down the true power of time, why starting now changes everything, and why waiting costs more than you think. Because time is the one thing you can't replace. Part 12, The Power of Time. Chapter 12, Why Starting Now Changes Everything. There is one force that doesn't care who you are. It doesn't care about your plans, your excuses, your intentions. It keeps moving. Time. The silent judge. Time doesn't speak. It doesn't warn. It doesn't wait. But it decides everything. A line that defines this chapter. Time rewards those who act and punishes those who delay. The illusion of later. Most people live in the same mindset. I'll start later. Later when things are easier. Later when I feel ready. Later when I have more time. But later is a trap. Because later turns into never. The hidden cost of waiting. Waiting feels harmless. You don't feel the loss immediately, but it's happening. Quietly. Every day you delay, you lose something you can't recover, time. The compounding effect. Time is not neutral. It compounds in both directions. Used well, it multiplies your results. Ignored, it multiplies your regrets. The early advantage. When you start early, even small actions grow. A little effort, a little progress, a little consistency, over time, it becomes massive. The late realization. Most people understand this too late. They look back and think, I should have started sooner, and that realization comes with a cost. A sentence you must remember. The best time to start was before. The second best time is now. The daily investment. Every day you are investing time. The question is, into what? Growth or distraction? Progress or comfort? Because every day counts, even when it feels small. The invisible progress. At first, you don't see results. It feels like nothing is changing. But something is. Your habits, your thinking, your direction, and over time, that becomes visible. The time multiplier. The earlier you start, the easier it becomes because you have more time to adjust, to learn, to grow. The late start problem, when you delay too long, you feel pressure, you rush, you panic, you force decisions, and that leads to mistakes. The calm advantage, starting early gives you something powerful. Space. Space to think, space to learn, space to improve, and that space creates better outcomes. The emotional trap. You think it's not the right time, but that thought will always exist because there is no perfect time, only chosen time, the decision point. At some moment, you must decide, do I wait or do I move? Because that decision changes everything, the identity of action. You become someone who starts, not someone who waits, and that identity creates momentum. The long-term impact years from now, you will look back, and one question will matter. Did I start when I could, or did you wait until it was too late? The present moment, right now. This moment is an opportunity, not a big one, but a real one, to start. The small step. You don't need everything figured out. You don't need a perfect plan. You just need movement. One step, then another. A sentence that defines this shift. You don't need more time. You need to use the time you have. The shift happens here. You stop waiting. You stop delaying. You stop overthinking, and you start acting. The compound future. Every action you take today builds tomorrow, and that future is closer than you think. The final realization, time is not your enemy, but it can become one if you ignore it. What comes next? Now you understand something critical: the paths, the mindset, the focus, the discipline, the environment, the self-deception, the power of time. But now we go even deeper, because there is something that determines how much you gain from all of this. Leverage. Because effort alone is not enough. And in the next chapter, we break down the concept that separates those who work hard from those who build wealth. Because leverage multiplies everything. Part 13. The power of leverage. Chapter 13. Why effort alone will never make you rich. There is a point where working harder stops working. You try more effort, more hours, more energy, but the results don't increase the same way. Why? Because effort has a limit. The hard truth. You can only work so many hours. You can only give so much energy. You can only push so far. And once you reach that limit, you're stuck. a line that defines this chapter. If your income depends only on your effort, your growth will always be limited. The missing piece: what you need is not more effort. You need leverage, because leverage multiplies what you do. What is leverage? Leverage is simple. It's doing more. Without doing more, it's using systems to expand your impact. The three forms of leverage. There are three main types: time leverage, skill leverage, system leverage. And understanding them changes everything. Time leverage. This is the first level. You stop trading time directly for money because time is limited. Instead, you create something once and let it work for you repeatedly. Example: thinking. Instead of doing one task for one result, you build something that produces results continuously. That shift creates scale. Skill leverage. This is the second level. You focus on skills that multiply your value, not just effort. Skills like decision-making, communication, problem-solving. These skills increase the impact of everything you do. The difference: two people can work the same hours, but one earns more, grows faster, advances further, because their skills create leverage. System leverage. This is the highest level. You build or use systems that operate without constant input. Businesses, investments, processes, and those systems continue working, even when you don't. A sentence: you must remember, leverage turns effort into exponential results. The builder's leverage. When you build, you create systems, products, services, platforms, and those systems scale beyond you. The investor's leverage. When you invest, you use existing systems, markets, companies, assets, and they grow without your constant effort. The operator's leverage. When you position yourself well, you access systems, you contribute, you learn, you rise, and you leverage the system's growth. The key realization: every path requires leverage. Without it, you stay limited. The effort trap. Most people stay here, working harder, longer, faster, but never scaling because they never shift to leverage. The shift in thinking. You stop asking, "How can I do more?" and start asking, "How can I make this work without me?" That question changes everything. The power of multiplication. Leverage doesn't add, it multiplies. Small efforts become large results. Over time, that difference becomes massive. The patience factor. Leverage takes time to build. At first, it feels slower because you're creating system instead of chasing results. But then, something shifts. The system starts working, results grow faster, effort decreases, and momentum builds. The long-term advantage. This is how wealth is created, not through constant effort, but through scalable systems. The identity shift. You stop thinking like a worker and start thinking like a builder, an investor, an operator. You think in systems, not tasks. A sentence that defines this chapter. Effort starts the journey. Leverage completes it. The strategic mindset. You begin to see opportunities differently, not as tasks to complete, but as systems to build. And that perspective creates advantage. The quiet transformation. You don't just work anymore. You design, you structure, you position, and those actions create long-term results. The bigger picture. Now everything connects. The path you choose determines your leverage. Your mindset determines how you use it. Your discipline determines how long you sustain it. The final realization: leverage is not optional. It is essential, because without it, you stay limited. What comes next? Now you understand something powerful. the paths, the mindset, the focus, the discipline, the environment, the self-awareness, the power of time, the role of leverage. But now we go deeper into something even more critical: risk. Because every path, every decision, every opportunity involves risk, and how you handle it determines everything. In the next chapter, we break down the truth about risk, why avoiding it keeps you stuck, and how understanding it sets you free, because risk is not what you think it is. Part 14, The Truth About Risk, Chapter 14. Why avoiding risk is the biggest risk of all. Most people think risk is the enemy. Something to avoid, something to minimize, something dangerous. But that belief is exactly what keeps them stuck. The misunderstood concept. When you hear the word risk, you probably think of loss, losing money, losing time, failing, and because of that, you hesitate, you wait, you hold back. A line that defines this chapter. The greatest risk is not taking one. It's staying where nothing changes. The safe illusion. A stable job feels safe. A predictable routine feels safe. A comfortable life feels safe. But look closer. Is it really? The hidden risk of safety. When you stay in one place, you stop growing. When you stop growing, you fall behind, and over time, that safe position becomes fragile. The silent decline skills become outdated. Opportunities pass, momentum fades, and you don't notice it until it's too late. The real definition of risk is not just loss, it's uncertainty. And uncertainty is where growth happens. The two types of risk. There are two kinds: blind risk, calculated risk, and understanding the difference changes everything. Blind risk. This is reckless. No plan, no understanding, no control, just action without awareness. And yes, that's dangerous. Calculated risk. This is different. You think, you analyze, you prepare, but you still act because you understand there is no progress without uncertainty. A sentence you must remember: you don't avoid risk, you learn to manage it. The risk of inaction. Let's be clear. Doing nothing is also a decision, and it carries risk. The risk of staying stuck, the risk of missed opportunities, the risk of regret, the long-term cost years later. This is what hurts most. Not the risks you took, but the ones you avoided. The builder's risk. When you build, you risk failure. Ideas might not work, efforts might not pay off, but you gain something valuable: experience. And experience reduces future risk. The investor's risk. When you invest, you risk volatility. Markets move, values change, but over time, with consistency, risk decreases because time stabilizes. The operator's risk. When you enter systems, you risk dependence. You rely on structures, on roles, on stability. But if you learn and convert, you turn that risk into leverage. The pattern you must see: every path involves risk. There is no risk-free option, only different types of risk. The real skill success is not about avoiding risk, it's about understanding it, managing it, using it. The emotional barrier, fear, will always exist. That doesn't change. But your response to it can. The shift in thinking. Instead of asking, "What if I fail?" you ask, "What is the cost of not trying?" And suddenly, the answer becomes clear. The courage factor. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's action despite it. And that's what separates winners. A sentence that defines this shift. You don't wait until you're fearless. You move while you're afraid. The gradual confidence. Every time you take a risk, you learn, you adapt, you improve, and over time, fear loses its power. The growth zone growth does not happen in comfort. It happens in uncertainty, in challenge, in movement, the new relationship with risk. You stop fearing it and start respecting it because risk becomes a tool, not a barrier. The long-term advantage, most people stay safe, and because of that, they stay the same. But you choose growth, and that choice changes everything. The final realization: you cannot build a different life without stepping into the unknown. What comes next? Now you understand something powerful: the paths, the mindset, the focus, the discipline, the environment, the self-awareness, the power of time, the role of leverage, the truth about risk. But now we move into something even more defining: decision-making, because your life is a reflection of your decisions. And in the next chapter, we break down how to make better decisions, faster, smarter, more effectively, because every step forward starts with a choice. Part 15, The Decisions That Define Your Life. Chapter 15, Why Your Choices Shape Everything. Your life is not random. It's not luck, not coincidence, not chance. It is the result of something far simpler: your decisions. The invisible pattern. Every day, you make choices, small ones, simple ones. What to focus on, what to ignore, what to do, what to delay. And those choices stack. A line that defines this chapter: your life is the sum of your decisions, repeated daily, the illusion of big moments. Most people think success comes from big decisions, a major opportunity, a life-changing move, a single breakthrough. But that's not how it works. The reality: your life is shaped by small decisions, repeated consistently, because small decisions become habits, and habits create direction, the daily direction. Every day, you are either moving forward or staying the same. There is no neutral, because time keeps moving. The unconscious choice. The most dangerous decisions are the ones you don't realize you're making: scrolling instead of learning, avoiding instead of acting, choosing comfort instead of growth. These feel small, but over time, they define everything. The power of awareness. The moment you become aware, everything changes, because now you can choose intentionally instead of reacting automatically. The decision filter. Before you act, ask yourself, does this move me forward or keep me where I am? That one question can change your life. The speed factor. Winners make decisions faster, not because they are reckless, but because they understand something: indecision is a decision. The cost of delay. When you hesitate, you lose momentum, you overthink, you doubt, you stall, and opportunities disappear. A sentence you must remember: slow decisions create slow lives. The adjustment principle. Making fast decisions doesn't mean being perfect, because you can adjust, you can learn, you can improve, but if you never decide, you never move. The confidence loop action builds confidence, not the other way around. You don't wait to feel ready. You move, and readiness follows. The emotional interference fear, doubt, uncertainty. They will always be there, but they don't need to control you. The logical anchor. When emotions rise, return to logic. What is the best move? What creates progress? What aligns with your goals? And act on that. The long-term thinking. Short-term decisions feel good, easy, comfortable, rewarding, but long-term decisions build your future, and they often feel harder. The trade-off: immediate comfort or future success, you choose every day. The pattern of winners. They choose long-term, again and again, even when it's difficult. The pattern of everyone else, they choose short term, again and again, and wonder why nothing changes. The decision identity. You become someone who decides quickly, acts consistently, adjusts intelligently, and that identity creates results. A sentence that defines this shift. You don't need perfect decisions, you need consistent ones. The compounding effect, better decisions, lead to better outcomes. Better outcomes lead to better opportunities, and over time, everything improves. The control you have. You cannot control everything, but you can control your decisions, and that is enough. The silent power, you don't need to announce it. You don't need validation. You just need to choose better every day. The final realization. Your future is not something that happens to you. It is something you build through decisions. What comes next? Now you understand something powerful. The paths, the mindset, the focus, the discipline, the environment, the self-awareness, the power of time, the role of leverage, the truth about risk, the importance of decisions. But now we reach something deeper, execution, because knowing what to do is not enough. And in the next chapter, we break down how to take action, consistently, effectively, relentlessly, because execution is where everything becomes real. Part 16. Execution, where everything becomes real. Chapter 16, Why Knowing is Not Enough. You can know everything, every strategy, every principle, every step, and still stay exactly where you are, because knowledge does not create results. Execution does. The hard truth. Most people don't fail because they don't know. They fail because they don't act. They think, they plan, they analyze, but they don't move. A line that defines this chapter. Knowledge builds potential. Execution turns it into reality. The illusion of preparation. It feels productive. Learning more, watching more, understanding more, but at some point, preparation becomes avoidance because action is uncomfortable. The fear behind inaction. Execution exposes you to failure, to judgment, to uncertainty, and that's why people hesitate, not because they don't know what to do, but because they're afraid to do it. The first step problem. Starting is always the hardest part because the beginning has no momentum, no clarity, no guarantee, just movement into the unknown. The simple truth. You don't need everything figured out. You just need to start because clarity comes from action, not from thinking. A sentence you must remember. Action creates clarity, not the other way around. The momentum effect. Once you begin, something changes. You see more, understand more, adjust faster, because movement creates feedback, and feedback guides progress. The small action principle. You don't need massive steps. You need consistent ones, small actions, repeated daily, because small actions build momentum, the consistency. Advantage one action won't change your life, but repeated action will, because consistency turns effort into results. The execution gap. This is where most people lose. They start, then stop, they act, then hesitate, they try, then quit, and progress disappears. The discipline of execution requires discipline, not motivation, because motivation fades, but discipline sustains action. The daily standard, you show up even when it's hard, even when it's boring, even when you don't feel like it, because that's what builds results. The identity shift. You stop being someone who thinks and become someone who acts, because action defines identity. A sentence that defines this shift. the invisible growth. It won't happen overnight. You won't wake up tomorrow and see a completely different life. But something will be different. Your thinking, your awareness, your direction, and over time, that becomes visible. The compound effect of identity. The person you are becoming will make better decisions. Those decisions will create better results, and those results will reinforce your identity until one day you realize you are no longer the same person. The only thing that matters now, not how much you learned, not how inspired you feel, but what you do next. Because action is the only thing that creates change. The simple commitment. So make it simple, not overwhelming, not complicated, just clear. I will act. I will stay consistent. I will build my path and hold that, because that commitment is everything. The quiet reality. Most people will hear this and do nothing. They will feel motivated, inspired, excited. And then they will go back to their habits, back to comfort, back to delay, and nothing will change. The separation point. This is where you decide, are you like them or are you different? The final question, not tomorrow, not next week, right now. Who are you becoming? A message to you. If even one idea in this journey shifted something inside you, don't let it fade. Act on it, because clarity without action disappears. A quiet call to action. If this resonated with you, make a promise, not to me, not to anyone else, to yourself, that you will not waste this awareness. And if one line stayed with you, one idea hit deeper than the rest, carry it forward, because sometimes one idea is enough to change everything. The closing line. There were always only 3 paths, but now you finally know which one is yours.